Now this is the third lecture I am giving on the conducting of evidence in the court. Today we will be talking about cross-examination. Cross-examination is being considered as the most important tool which is in the hands of an advocate, opposite side. Now once we understand why cross-examination and how it is to be done and what are the powers and the rights given to the opposite side under the law for conducting cross-examination, it will be much more easier for us to understand it and to comprehend that why this has been considered as the most important tool. Now first of all we'll see what is the purpose of cross-examination. The purpose obviously of cross-examination is to test the truthfulness of the deposition which has been made by a witness in the court of law. Now whatever has been deposed in a court of law, now the opposite party is been given a chance to show to the court that the deposition given by the witness is doubtful and the court must not believe his testimony, and that is all what the rights of the opposite side are in the evidence what we will study or what we will talk today. Now as far as testing the veracity of a witness is concerned, in the Evidence Act itself, in section 155 of the Indian Evidence Act, there are three ways which have been provided in the Evidence Act which tell us how we can impeach the credibility of the witnesses. Now what are those three ways? Now the first of all, it is that you can produce someone in a court of law who believes that the testimony given by a witness is unworthy of credit. This is one way. Second thing is, you can prove in a court of law that the particular witness has been bribed. Or thirdly, you can also show to the court that the former statement given by that particular witness is inconsistent. Now these are the things which are provided in section 156 of the Indian Evidence Act itself, which to show to the court that the person deposing is not truthful, is unbelievable, and you cannot believe him, so that the court does not give the testimony of that particular witness the evidentiary value which originally it had, and that is only the purpose of cross-examination. Now under section 146 of the Evidence Act, some questions are being the ways in which the questions are being asked, that has also been given in the Evidence Act. So 146 says what questions you can ask to a witness in addition to whatever question you ask in a cross, because the area of cross-examination is quite wide. It is not so limited as far as examination in chief is concerned. So you can ask anything and everything in the cross-examination except some of the qualifications which are given in the Evidence Act, which you cannot ask. Otherwise the area is quite broader in cross-examination. So in addition to the questions what you are asking in the cross-examination, there are few questions more which you can ask to test his veracity. First of all, to test his veracity, that you can show to the court that this witness is biased. Section 146 provides for it. You can ask him who he is, what his business is, to discover his position in life. Thirdly, you can ask some questions to shake his credit, to ask him who has brought him to the court, why he is giving the deposition, whether somebody has told what is to be deposed in the court of law, etc., etc. These are some questions which you can ask. So these are the provisions which are there in the Indian Evidence Act itself. Now, once we understand why cross-examination, how it is to be done, then it will be very clear. Now, I'll just give you one example. Now, there are 4 friends who are traveling together, and let us assume that when coming back to home, they were late. Now, when they reached, the parents asked, why you are late? One of the friends said that the car got punctured. One thing is that you believe in the statement, you do not ask any further questions, which in one way accepts the version given by one of the friends. The other is that you do not believe that what he is saying is correct. Now the cross-examination comes. Now you take all the 4 friends in different rooms and ask them which tire got punctured. Now let us assume that each one of tells a different tire. So it is now very clear that whatever has been said is a lie. They are hiding something. This is only the purpose of cross-examination. Now let us take this example in practical way and in reference to the evidence which is given in the court of law. Now, once a statement given in examination in chief is not confronted with, is not questioned, you do not ask any question, the court will believe that you have accepted it as a truth. But once you ask questions regarding each particular fact, those become disputed questions. Now it is your capability, how much you can elicit from a witness and how far you can take him, which to the mind of the court, judicial mind, becomes unworthy evidence which a court should not believe, which is untrustworthy, which is false. Now this is the only thing and only purpose of cross-examination. It is very important. Cross-examination is such an important part of evidence that the Honorable Supreme Court in one of the cases extended Article 21, which says right to life and liberty, which includes a right to fair trial, to include the right of cross-examination. If an accused has been deprived of cross-examination, the testimony should not be taken into consideration. That is the importance of cross-examination. Without cross-examination, there can be no evidence. If an examination is done and the cross-examination is not complete, then that evidence loses its value, evidentiary value. It has no evidentiary value at all. Now, as far as cross-examination is concerned, it is very important that you prepare well for your case. You are briefed properly about the things which are to be deposed and how you are to be cross-examined. You must understand the witness. Try to talk to your client and get as much as information as you get regarding that particular witness, because each witness has a different way and you have to approach each witness differently. There is not a single formula which will apply to each and every case. By passage of time and by experience, you will understand and some things you watch in court when you come eye to eye contact with the witness, you understand him, and you come to know which questions should be asked, how it should be asked, and where he is going here and where, and then you can take benefit of that. That is also very important. So questions should be very simple, clear, short questions, not long questions, because long questions sometimes get confusing and the court is not clear what the answer is given and how that question is are put. So it is advisable that short questions should be asked. It should be very clear, simple questions, and sometimes you have to ask spontaneous questions in situations when the witness gives a deposition which is or a statement which is not under your preparation, and an answer comes which is a very different answer. So you have to spontaneously frame questions and ask regarding that particular fact also which has come in the deposition or in the cross examination. So first of all, it is that you have to put questions regarding each fact, and if you do not ask a question regarding one particular fact, then that shall be considered as an admission on your part. Second thing is that whenever you get a favorable answer, the answer which you are looking for from a witness, then you should stop then and there. You should not ask any further questions, because it will then harm your case. Now coming particularly to two types of cases we have seen, civil and criminal cases. Cross examination in both the cases is very different, as we've already discussed in the earlier two lectures, how in civil cases examination in chief is tendered and how in criminal cases it is done. Now in civil cases, particularly in those cases where the other party wants to prove a particular fact through two or more witnesses. It has been seen sometimes that there are depositions which are verbatim same, which the witnesses are deposing, and in that case your endeavor should be to convince the court that you will examine those witnesses on a single day. And if because mostly the court allows this particular thing, and when you get that permission from the court that you will examine them on a single day, then try to shorten your cross examination so that each of those witnesses are examined on that particular day. It should be, if it might be that you have prepared very long and very exhaustively or very thoroughly, but you will only you will try to save time. It should not happen that the court grants you permission, but despite that permission you are not able to cross examine all the witnesses who are stating some verbatim facts on a single day because of paucity of times, because the courts are very overburdened these days. So it should be one aspect that in civil cases you should try in those cases. And in criminal cases, as far as it is concerned, the most important thing is in criminal cases is that though you should try to prepare for each witness differently. If a witness is coming, you should briefly note the facts. You should briefly or separately you should prepare a file regarding the documents he is going to exhibit, or what thing he want to depose, and what are the contradictions in the earlier evidence which you want to put to him. And you should prepare each witness separately, because in criminal cases we are much aware of what the witnesses are going to depose, because there are 161 statements and we can go through 161 statements and have an idea what deposition is going to come in the criminal cases. We should also in our background, apart from Indian Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code and the provisions of Indian Penal Code, we should try to go through the Punjab rules where it is or to the Delhi High Court rule where it has been laid that how the police inspectors, police officers are to maintain their daily diaries, because in criminal matters daily diary play a very important role, and sometimes you get very important clues from the daily diaries, though you are not allowed to see those diary, but the judge can always ask or can refer to those diaries. and that you should know, a little background you should have. And as far as expert evidence is concerned, when an expert witness comes, either it is an expert with regard to a medical document or with regard to a handwriting expert or forensic expert, you should try to research a little bit about that particular science. Today we can Google it and we can very easily know few basic things which we should try to read and understand before cross-examining that particular witness. Now the most important thing is that in cases I have seen where there are 2, 3, 4 or many accused persons, then you should be very careful that when a deposition is made by a prosecution witness in a court of law, then you should understand what deposition is being given against your client. If there is no deposition, if there is no averment, if there is nothing against your client, you should not ask any questions. It is not that you have to necessarily ask something when there is nothing against you, because it is a double-edged weapon. Cross-examination is told to be a double-edged, because you should know what to ask, equally important what not to ask. So you should be very careful about what not to ask and where to stop and when not to cross-examine. This is another aspect. Now the most important thing in criminal cases which I have seen is the thing when the statements are given differently than those which are recorded by the police under section 161 of the Indian Evidence Act. 161 in the Criminal Procedure Code. Now there are two things to be remembered. One is that a statement which is given by a witness in a court of law is a different statement what he has given under section 161. Or secondly, now the witness has given something extra which is not there in the statement under section 161. Now the first thing is that he has given a different statement. He has made what we can say is a contradictory statement to what he has given, or a different statement let us say regarding the role of each of the accused persons. He has given a different version in 161 and now he is giving a different version. And the other thing is that what was not there in 161, now he is deposing in court of law. Now one is called improvement, other is called contradictions. Now how to cross-examine in that particular scenario when this type of witness is given? It is very important, because we all know that 161 statement has no evidentiary value as far as in court is concerned, and that is only with reference to the police case which has been made by the investigating officer. Now if a different version comes, like if a version comes which is contradictory to the one which is there in 161 and it is against you, now it is the time for you to take benefit of it. You will immediately ask that particular witness that you have given a different version in 161. You will put that 161 statement to that particular witness. You will exhibit that particular statement, the different version in the 161. You will highlight that particular version and then exhibit that particular statement, and now you will take benefit of that in final arguments when the matter will be taken up at a later stage. And you will also ask for that particular witness that why he is giving this particular different version now. Secondly is when he has given something, he has said something, what I have said is spoken something which was not there in the statement in 161. Now that is improvement. Now you will again ask the witness that yes, whether this fact which you are deposing today in court in court has been told to the IU or not. If he says that he has not told to the IU, then your job is done. But if he says no, I have told to the IU, then you will show 161 to him and then confront him and then highlight that particular portion that this statement what you are given in court today was not there in 161, and you will also ask for the reason of that particular why this particular fact was not told at an earlier stage, and And then you will obviously in cross examination of the IO, you will also ask regarding that particular fact, which confrontation you have done in the court of law. Now then you can take the benefit of 161. Now what is the purpose and why we are confronting him, the witness, under 161 or to the deposition which now he is giving to the court, is for two reasons. One is that you are giving an opportunity to the witness to explain that why different version today, why something which was not said in 161 is deposed in the court of law. Secondly is 161 statement cannot be referred to in final arguments because it has no evidentiary value, but once that 161 statement is been exhibited and you have highlighted that particular portion, then the court can go through that 161 statement and you can take benefit out of it at the final stage. Because the purpose of cross examination is you have to show to the court that this witness is untrustworthy. Once you have shown to the court that there are major contradictions he has made in the versions, and this deposition cannot be believed because this is untruthful, then the job which you are given is almost done. So these are a few things which you have to take into consideration. And last thing is suggestions. In criminal matters, you know that suggestions play a very important part. So when to make suggestions, this is very important. One is that you can ask leading questions, obviously, in cross examination, but there are a few restrictions that what questions should not be asked. Some questions which are scandalous should not be asked, which are indecent should not be asked, which is intent to insult or annoy. You can't ask those questions that are provided in 149, 150, 152 of the Indian Evidence Act. But leading questions you can ask, the questions where the answer is suggestible in yes or no, those questions can only be asked. Now we were talking about suggestions. Now finally I want to end this talk by saying that suggestions should not be asked in the end of each and every question. You are asking about a particular fact. When you make all the questions regarding a particular fact, then in the end of that para you will give suggestions, and you should be very careful while giving suggestions, because suggestions should not in a way tell to the court that you are admitting certain facts, because in criminal matters, once there are suggestions in which there are some admissions that can go against you and can destroy your case totally. So you should be very careful how to give suggestions, what suggestions are to be given, and when to give those suggestions. In the end, I'll end by saying that I've seen that in sometimes whatever basically in trial courts that the statement are being given by the witness in Hindi language, and then they are converted into English language by the stenographer or by the public prosecutor. You should be very careful when these statements are made, that they are the sense of that particular thing which has been said should be there, and if you are feeling that that sense is not there, then you should try to give that particular answer in verbatim the language of what has been given. If it is given in Hindi, then you should in bracket write it or ask the court that this answer should also be written in Hindi also, because that particular sense should come when that particular thing is to be argued in a court of law at a final stage. Now sometimes we see that some questions we ask to a witness and the court disallow those questions. If that question is not very important, you may ignore it. But sometimes to us it is that we see that it is a very important question and that question should have been allowed. Then I should suggest you to request to a court to write that question in the deposition, and thereafter the court may disallow it, because it should not, because sometimes it is seen that the same presiding officer who is taking evidence is not there at the final stage. So if there is a different presiding officer at a final stage, then it should not come that you have not asked this particular questions, then that loophole should be covered. So these are some general things which I have noticed, and which I wanted to share it to you. I hope that they will give benefit to young lawyers. Thank you so much.